What's up, Temple? What's up, Philly? What's up, world? Welcome to Philly Famous Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Holdsman. The show highlights Philly's most dynamic creators and leaders, and we've featured both legends and up-and-comers from the worlds of sports, music, business, and activism. You can learn more about the podcast, including the 80-plus episodes that we've featured, on our website at phillyfamouspodcast.com. My guest today is the chef and founder of Philadelphia's critically acclaimed Vetri family of restaurants. In addition to his storied career in the kitchen, he is also the driving force behind the Vetri Community Partnership, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to empower children and families through fresh food, hands-on experiences, and education. He is a fascinating human being with a multitude of skills and knowledge and passions. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome on award-winning chef and restaurateur, Marc Vetri, to Philly Famous Podcast. How you doing, Marc?
Yeah, man. Very good.
So the first thing people are going to notice is your green beard.
Hey,
we talked about it before we started recording.
We did.
Give them the quick story about the beard.
Philadelphia Eagles all the way, man. So we had this on last year for the whole thing, and we got to do it again this year. So
So this is actually good timing because you recently announced that you've opened a restaurant in Vegas.
I did
Vetri Cucina.
Vetri Cucina. Yeah.
Cucina. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I'm not Italian.
That's all right.
Vetri Cucina Las Vegas.
Vetri Cucina. Yeah.
So have you been spending a lot of time in Vegas? You've been back and forth.
A little bit, yeah. So I'm gonna probably end up out there like I'd say like the once a month or so.
Once a month?
But for the opening, I mean, I was out there for like the month. Yeah, I mean, for the opening was obviously a lot of work, a lot of organization. So we had to really live out there for a little bit. But
Why Vegas?
It was actually just one of those things that just sort of happened. We were never looking there. I mean, over the last, so I opened the Vetri restaurant in 1998, and over the last 20 or so years, we've had lots of offers out there, right? So I always went out there, and I always looked at it, but there was nothing there that really was like, oh man, you got to open this up. And then this offer happened, and it was sort of right, when I was leaving Urban Outfitters, there was this offer out there, and I was like, oh, let me just look into it. So I went out there, and they didn't want me to open up this huge Vegas-y style restaurant. They wanted me to open up the.
Well, it's got some Philly flair to it, right?
A lot of Philly flair to it. Also, we only have like 75 seats. So it's a small restaurant for Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that, and I just thought it was really something that was sort of in an interesting next sort of road.
Is it at all risky? Are you taking a risk here?
No risk.
No, why not?
Zero risk. Well, no money. I mean, obviously they obviously they footed the bill for the whole thing. And then the risk is, I mean, obviously there's always, your name risk.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I mean, I'm not the guy who's gonna head out there like, three times a year,
mm-hmm.
And just now I got a restaurant out there, so what? I mean, we're really, we're really into it. So
you've now got close.
We're gonna work hard at it.
You've now got close to 10 restaurants.
Well, I only have 2 restaurants now, so yeah.
You've started
I started a lot of restaurants.
Right. So,
yeah.
and they're all very different, but what are the common themes that run throughout them? Like when someone walks into a Vetri restaurant, what do you want them to feel, smell, hear?
Hospitality. I think that a lot of restaurateurs, I think that they sort of focus a little bit too much on like the look, the vibe, the food, which obviously you have to have a look, you have to have a vibe, you have to have really incredible, things, for food. But I think it's hospitality that sometimes gets overlooked. And I think that, that was always it, whenever you ate at the other restaurants, whatever the level, obviously, some were, less expensive than others, some were super fine dining, some were, obviously just, your neighborhood restaurants. But there was always a level of warmth and hospitality, and I think that's what we're sort of
That's what you're known for.
That we're known for.
So for you, is it more about the food, or is it about creating the
It's about
ambiance?
everything, man. You can't just like focus on the food. You're going to lose. You have to think about everything. Everything has a little bit, happening. The look, that's important. The vibe, that's important. The food, that's important. The service, that's important. But it all has to work with each other. Mm-hmm. And that's the hard part, knowing what the restaurant is. You've eaten at some restaurants where you're like, oh man, the food's good, but like it's weird in here. Maybe the music's too loud, or there's the server's just not interactive with you, and it just leaves like it just makes it negative for you. I mean, I think
So you spent years, not years, a year and a half, I think, training in Italy.
Year and a half, 2 years in Italy,
in Bergamo.
Bergamo, yeah. You're saying all the words wrong, man. That's all right. That's all right.
Under some of the best chefs in the region. But before that, you actually considered pursuing a career in music.
Music,
And
yeah.
you were a guitarist.
Yeah.
So what happened that led to that shift? Was there a
Still a
moment?
guitar? No, I mean, I was out in, I was in LA. I was in music school, and I was making a living working in restaurants, and I just started to be like, hey, you know what? I'm not making any money here. I'm able to make a living here. I really like this, and I started learning more and more and more. And I was in LA for 3 years. And I was just kind of sick of LA, and I didn't like the vibe out there, and I mean, the weather was awesome, obviously, but I didn't like it out there. So I just had this opportunity. There's a guy who owned a restaurant called Valentino, and I used to just kind of stop in there, and I was like, man, I'd really love to go to Italy. And he just said to me, he's like, hey, I mean, there's a guy who I know who has a restaurant in Bergamo. He's got a room, you can go, So I was like, all right, how do I do that? And he just wrote this letter for me, and he said, you head to the restaurant, and he handed the guy this note, and I was like, all right, that's it, yeah.
Do you ever think about what your life would be like if you had pursued music fully?
It's hard to think about it, because that never happened, so I don't, it's sort of hard to think about the what ifs, right? I don't I don't like to think about like, what if this happened, what if that happened. I just kind of focus on the road that I'm on, you know, and just kind of see what happens, you know. There's a lot of what ifs in the world, right? You know.
I also read that one of your biggest hobbies is training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, yeah.
What's the story with that?
I've been at it for about 10 years now. I just love it, man. I started it up, and it's just one of those things that just, how it's like, you work out a lot of years, you know.
You got bored with working out?
You do this, that, and the other thing. Yeah, I was like the basketball guy. Also, you know, I know you were too. And I used to love it, but then I started to get older. My knees hurt, and then my shoulder hurt, and I had knee surgery, and this and that, and then it was just like, oh my God, man! It's like so hard on your body.
So how do you manage?
So I had to stop. You know.
So how do you manage cooking? Because you still are a line cook sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Cooking, managing restaurants,
family.
You still play music.
I still play music.
And these other hobbies that you have. How do you manage all that? How do you balance it?
Balance. I mean, right? That's the thing. That's what everybody asks, right? I feel like everybody has this is like the bucket for the home life, and this is the vacation, and this is the work life bucket, and everyone has to be like, okay, this is this bucket, and that's not going to mess with this bucket, and then when they're away, right? They're like, I'm not going to look at emails, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that, and so I just have one bucket, and that's everything's in there, like family, vacation, home, everything, and I just feel like that when you start separating things out, you're always going to get overwhelmed, I think, but when you have, when you love your work like I love my work, I love my work,
So you don't separate
work
life and personal life? It's
never.
all the same.
It's all the same. It's one, it's here's the bucket of life, that's
that
it,
philosophy.
man. One bucket.
I've noticed that with a lot of...
My next book's going to be The Bucket of Life.
Okay, that's the title?
The title of the book.
So when I interviewed Nick...
I just figured it out right now.
When I interviewed Nick Bayer, who is the CEO of Saxby, he said the same thing. He said that I don't believe in this separation of my work and my fun. I love what I do.
Yeah, how do you not answer emails while you're away? I don't even understand that. You're needed, so it's everything, it's just one bucket. You love what you do, and it just works. It's not going to work for everyone, obviously. You work a 9-to-5 job. Yeah, maybe it isn't the same thing, right? But maybe that's why I could never work a 9-to-5 job. So I don't really know what that's like.
Longer hours than that.
Yeah, I work all day, all night. I mean.
So aside from the chefs, the well-known chefs you worked under in Italy, who were some of the other chefs and restaurateurs that you may have looked up to and admired growing up and maybe still do?
I just when I was sort of rolling up in the industry, there weren't really any there was the Wolfgangs, and that was really it.
Wolfgang Puck?
Yeah. So I worked for him out in, when I lived out in, when I lived out in Los Angeles. Other than that, there was really no chefs to really look up to, right? Like all the ones that you you read about now, they were all like line cooks when I was a line cook. You know,
so they're about your age, right?
So I know all those guys. You know, yeah, they're all my age.
The Food Network guys.
The Food Network guys. There wasn't any Food Network when I started off. You know, I mean, this is the late '80s, the early '90s. There was no Food Network. There was nothing. You know, like the restaurant, the industry wasn't like this. You know, nobody was like, I want to be a chef. You know, they're like, stay out of the restaurant industry. That's a lot of work. You know, I mean, it's really only in the last like 15, 20 years that it's really like there's this like celebrity chef thing. That's really sort of.
Have you considered doing that?
It's a weird thing. No, I'm not a celebrity.
You don't want to do a Food Network thing?
No, I'm not a Food Network guy.
So, Mark, if there was, this is a tough question, but if there was a movie made about your life,
Oh man.
which maybe there will be.
Maybe there will be.
What's the one scene that absolutely cannot be left out for people to fully understand who you are?
You know, it's such a hard thing to ask, and I mean, even to answer. Like, I mean, I don't even know, man. I love ridiculous movies, so it's kind of hard to say what's the one movie that would actually fit me, you know.
Well, no, I'm not asking you if there's a movie that fits you.
Okay.
If there was a movie made about your life, what's a scene from the life that you've already lived that would need to be in there?
Oh man, this scene from the life that I've already lived.
And it could be a moment, it could be a period of time.
I would say probably like, I mean, the fun scene, you know, when I was sort of working out everything, like that was like the moment that I really sort of realized that, hey, I want to open up. I mean, I want to open up a restaurant was really when I lived in Italy. You know, that was sort of when everything opened up because I didn't like LA, and I was like, I really like the food stuff, but I don't know. And when I arrived in Italy, it was like
everything clicked.
Minutes. I was like, oh my God, like this is it.
Did you consider staying in Italy?
Nah, I mean, I went there like years ago with like no visa, I was illegal over there. It was a whole, it's, you could never, what I did then, you could never do now, you know.
So I read a blog post that you wrote.
Mm-hmm. Hold on.
Hold up.
Technical difficulties.
Plug it back in. I don't know how long I've been missing that. But so
mine's on still.
So I read a blog post of yours that where you talked about your lifelong stutter.
Yeah.
And you mentioned how you recently become comfortable talking about it and acknowledging it. So in what ways has your speech impediment played a role in your life, in your journey, in your confidence, in your work ethic? Yeah,
I mean, I think that having something like that makes you more empathetic, makes you really make an effort to understand what what everybody else has, right? Because I think that everyone's got something, right? And you might not be able to see it like right on the surface, right? But everyone's got something that they're worried about.
They're battling.
They're hiding. That they're battling, and you never know what it is, right? So you always have to have an open, like an open mind, and I just feel like I'm super empathetic to what's sort of happening around me, and I think if I didn't have that, I might not be, you know. So I think it's made me, I hate to think of it like my stutter sort of, you know, sort of, you know, uh, uh, my my stutter like defines who I am. But in a way, yes, it does. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's made me.
You think empathy is the biggest thing?
Such a more such a more well-rounded individual.
I didn't realize that we had the similarity. I mean, I mentioned to you, I don't stutter. I used to a little bit, but the similarity that I'm talking about is before we were on air, I told you about my concussions.
Yeah.
And like the last couple of years of battling this
Yeah.
post-concussive syndrome. And what's similar about us is that nobody can see it on the surface.
Sure.
So for the last 2 years, like I've been struggling.
Of course.
But when I have a conversation with somebody, they don't see what
Yeah,
I'm
they
going
don't
through. It's
know.
all in here. And for you, until you open up your mouth, you wouldn't know.
Yeah. It's the same thing, and it's the one thing also that nobody really no, because it's like, you know, you look normal, you know, and then they'll say like, hey, you know, what's this, and I'll be like, and I'll like, you know, start to like, you know, to sort of you know, to sort of stumble over things, and they'll be like, ha ha ha, and I'm like, no, that's kind of how I just kind of talk, and
Right.
you know, but they don't know, you know, so it's you know.
How has your relationship with your stutter changed over time? Was there a time where you were more ashamed of it?
It's a love-hate relationship.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. You know, I think when I was younger, I sort of hated it. I mean, obviously, because when you're, you know, young, you're in 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, you know, you get laughed at, you know. But I think like those you know, those living sort of through that makes you also, you know, makes you, you know, much you know, much you know, much you know, much see, sometimes I get really, you know, stuck on a word. I just think it makes you into a much stronger human being.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so those are the things. Like if you like just head through life and like everything's easy for you and you never really have any struggles or anything. I mean, you know, you're never going to learn anything about anything. You know, so I feel that my struggles really sort of helped me to handle things later in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's all. That's a good thing. I mean,
Well, having to handle your adversity your whole life, or an adversity, helps you out down the road. When
I think so,
Yeah.
man. And it's your whole life. I mean, you know, when I was, you know, sort of younger, the therapy, you know, for this stuff, you know, was, hey, you know, we're going to work on this, we're going to work on that, you know, we're going to make you not stutter, you know, and like that's not a realistic thing, right? But now I think a lot of the therapy is like, hey, we're gonna help you to feel much more, you know, relaxed with your stutter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really, you know, really helps young folks who stutter later in life a lot easier, you know.
So outside of the kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
you also have a nonprofit, the Vetri
Yeah.
Foundation. What are the issues that you're trying to address with that?
Food issues, right? You know, I think that, you know, well, you know, so we've had this for about 10 years now, and we started off really sort of focusing on the school lunch issues, right? Because school lunch in a lot of the inner city schools is really just horrible. There's no, there really isn't any nutritional value. I mean, at all, and it's just absolutely horrible food.
So it's food disparity.
Oh, it's just disgusting. So we started off with this like school lunch where we would have everyone sit around round tables, and we'd like make everything from scratch, and we would eat family style, and everybody would interact, and there was this whole interaction that was sort of happening secondary to the food. Obviously the food was much healthier also, but then there was this interaction that was happening that was really neat. Because a lot of these inner city folks, they head home and there's no real interaction going on. I mean, so
you think food can play a major role in social change?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I think food is like the answer to almost everything. I mean, when you really think about it, and then also through the years we started developing these after school things, these lessons, these labs. We have this mobile van that heads to farmers markets where we show folks, the issue is, right, they say that like that in these areas there isn't any options, right? So they stick a farmer's market there, and then you have all these vegetables there, but then everybody looks at the vegetables and like, how do I make that? So we stick the food van there, and whatever they have there, like some squash. So like, well, I'm not going to get the squash because I don't know how to use it. So we show them, here's how you slice it, here's how you saute it, here's how you roast it in the oven, here's how you do this with it, here's a recipe for it, and then they're like, oh, I can make that with that thing over there, like, yeah, and then they buy it. So there's this missing link, and I feel like we are the missing link,
So Mark, what characterizes the food scene in Philly?
What do you mean, what characterizes it? Like,
how would you describe Philly as a unique food city?
Oh man, I just think I think like the Eagles, we're always like the underdogs, right? Because there's always New York and there's Washington, right? And I think we're always like, oh, like we're just right in the middle of those larger cities, right? But I think over the last, especially 10 years, we have really defined ourselves as a real, as a real value. I think the restaurants here are, like on the level of most of the restaurants that are in all the world, and I think that it's a fantastic city for food, and I think that many chefs from the New York area, the Washington area, they're actually leaving those areas and they're actually moving here because rents are still sort of reasonable, and it's just a lot more reasonable to open up a restaurant here than it is to open up a restaurant in New York.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to open up there and you're just not going to make money.
So we have to wrap it up. Before we do,
Okay.
Do you have a favorite cheesesteak spot?
Come on, the original. Pat's, the original.
You really think it's Pat's?
I do,
I'm surprised
man.
to hear that from a foodie.
Come on, I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit of history. Maybe it's a little bit of I mean, that's where I used to eat when I was young, so I always loved it. And like now I also know the owners there now, so I kind of like, so it's kind of like,
Oh, you kind of have to say Pat's.
I don't have to say Pat's. I just really
Right.
think it is the best.
All right, Mark, thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
I wish you luck with your new Vegas restaurant.
Thanks so much.
And
man.
I need to book a reservation at Osteria. Is it Osteria?
Osteria, but I don't own that anymore, remember.
Okay, but it's still
Sure.
your staples on it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Hey, man, thanks so much for having me. Sure.
So yeah.